Accuracy of eyewitness testimony, anxiety. Eyewitness testimony is a legal term. It refers to an account given by people of an event they have witnessed. For example, they may be required to give a description at a trial of a robbery or a road accident. However, research into this area has found that eyewitness testimony can be affected by many psychological factors, one of which being stress. Defenbacher, 1983, reviewed 21 studies and found that the stress-performance relationship followed an inverted U function. This means that for tasks of moderate complexity, performance increases with stress up to an optimal point, after which it starts to decline. This is known as catastrophe theory. In other words, there is an optimum level for stress. If this optimum level is reached, then a witness may remember more than usual. However, for an event that is too stressful and causes arousal to increase beyond the optimum level, the inverted U hypothesis predicts a gradual decrease in performance. Some studies show that stress and anxiety has a negative effect on memory as well as performance generally. An example of this is research studies into something called the weapon focus effect. When we are in a state of anxiety, we tend to focus on whatever is making us feel anxious or fearful, and we exclude other information about the situation. If a weapon is used to threaten a victim, their attention is likely to focus on it. Consequently, their recall of other information is likely to be poor. Johnson and Scott, 1976, invited participants to a laboratory where they were told to wait in the reception area. A receptionist who was seated nearby excused herself to run an errand, leaving the participant alone. The experiment used an independent group's design, as participants were then exposed to one of two conditions. In the no-weapon condition, participants overheard a conversation in the laboratory about equipment failure. Thereafter, an individual left the laboratory and walked past the participant holding a pen, with his hands covered in grease. In the weapon condition, participants overheard a heated exchange and the sound of breaking glass and crashing chairs. This was followed by an individual running into the reception area, holding a blooded letter opener. A letter opener looks very much like a knife. Both groups were then shown 50 photographs and asked to identify the person who had left the laboratory. The participants were informed that the suspect may or may not be present in the photographs. Those who had witnessed a man holding a greasy pen correctly identified the target 49% of the time, compared to those who had witnessed the man holding a knife, who correctly identified the target 33% of the time. Loftus claimed that the participants who were exposed to the knife had higher levels of anxiety and were more likely to focus their attention on the weapon and not the face of the target, a phenomenon known as the weapon focus effect. Therefore, the anxiety associated with seeing a knife reduced the accuracy of their eyewitness testimony. Another study also demonstrated this by monitoring eyewitnesses' eye movements. They found that the presence of a weapon caused attention to be physically drawn towards the weapon itself and away from other things such as the face of the culprit. Meanwhile, other studies contradict these. They instead found anxiety to have a positive effect on eyewitness accuracy. There is an evolutionary argument suggesting it would be adaptive to remember events that are more emotionally important so that you could identify similar situations in the future and recall how to respond. Christiansen and Hubinett, 1993, found evidence of enhanced recall when they questioned 58 real witnesses to bank robberies in Sweden. Witnesses were either victims, bank teller, high anxiety, or bystanders, employees or customers, lower anxiety as they were not directly involved. All were interviewed 4 to 15 months after the robberies, and all had generally good memory. The average accuracy of the recall was greater than 75%, and witnesses who were more anxious, the victims, had the best recall of all. This contradicts the research we have previously looked at and suggests that memory of the central details of negative emotional events is better than for neutral events.